Loyalty is not what people claim it is. It's not found in Instagram captions or long-winded speeches at birthday dinners. It's not the loud applause in public, nor the sudden flood of affection when you rise. It's not even the years someone has stood beside you. That's not loyalty, that's history. And history means nothing if it hasn't been tested by pressure. True loyalty isn't declared, it's exposed. Not in comfort, not in calm, but in chaos, in absence, in silence. It's revealed in moments when there's nothing left to gain. The truth is, most people don't actually know who's loyal to them. They walk through life surrounded by smiles, inside jokes, and nostalgia. But Machiavelli warned us centuries ago, loyalty that hasn't been tested doesn't exist. People aren't loyal to you. They're loyal to the role you play in their life, the benefits, the validation, the power you radiate when you're at your best. But start to change, start to grow, start to pull back, and you'll see how fast they shift. The smiles fade, the support weakens, the room gets quiet, because their presence was never about you. It was about what you represented. And here's where most people fail. They think asking for loyalty is enough, that if someone says, "I've got your back," that settles it. But that's not how human nature works. Loyalty isn't proven by words. It's proven by behavior, when no one is watching. That's why the smart don't ask, "Are you loyal?" They don't beg for reassurance, they create conditions that expose truth. Quietly, strategically, sometimes even cruelly, but only if needed. Because if someone will betray you for attention, for proximity, for opportunity, they'll do it again. And the only way to know that in advance is through tests. Not traps, tests. And once you start running them, you'll be shocked at how fast your circle thins. The people you thought would never leave vanish when the spotlight fades. The ones who swore loyalty shift the moment your energy dries up. But don't mourn that loss. Celebrate it. Because what remains after the pressure, after the withdrawal, after the silence, is no longer a guess. It's real, it's sharp, it's proven. And in a world obsessed with appearances, there is no greater power than knowing who would still stand beside you when there's no spotlight, no benefit, and no applause. Test 1, the attention withdrawal. The first test is simple, but surgical. You stop feeding them. Not food, not money. Something more addictive. Your attention, your validation, your spotlight. You stop liking their posts. You stop responding quickly. You stop being the constant source of energy they've grown used to. And then you watch. No confrontation, no explanation. Just a shift. Because the truth is, many people in your life aren't addicted to you. They're addicted to the reflection of themselves in your presence. You've been their mirror, their source of relevance, their emotional audience. The moment you dim that light, their true character begins to surface. The real don't flinch. They lean in. They notice. They ask, "Is everything okay?" But the false? They fade, or worse, they redirect their orbit to someone else, someone shinier, someone more useful. And that's the revelation. Their loyalty wasn't to you, it was to what they felt like when you were looking at them. Machiavelli understood this deeply. He knew that attention is currency, and when you cut off supply, you expose demand. If someone withdraws the moment your attention does, that's not loyalty, it's emotional dependency. It's ego addiction. It's them using you as fuel for their self-worth. But the ones who remain steady through silence, the ones who still show up when the applause is gone, those are the ones who don't need your spotlight to feel their value. They bring their own. So when you begin this test, prepare for discomfort, because it doesn't just reveal them, it reveals you. You'll see how much of your connections were built on performance, reciprocity, or the fear of being alone. But that discomfort is temporary. The clarity it brings, permanent. Let those who were with you only for your attention fall away. That isn't loss, that's filtration. And what remains, what doesn't flinch, what doesn't fade, is your foundation. The circle will shrink, but what's left is gold. Test 2, the disruption of certainty. Now that you've withdrawn attention, it's time to shake the foundation. The second test is all about disruption. You introduce change, controlled, calculated. A decision that implies risk, a new project, a different path, a bold shift in direction that threatens comfort. Not because you need approval, but because change forces hidden motives to the surface. Speak of evolution, speak of expansion, something that elevates you or distances you, and then go silent. Just watch. Those who are loyal to your growth will support it, even if they don't fully understand it. But those who were only loyal to the version of you that stayed predictable, familiar, safe, they'll tense, not visibly but subtly. They'll raise doubts disguised as care. Are you sure? What if it doesn't work? I just don't want you to get hurt. Sounds kind, doesn't it? But Machiavelli would say otherwise, because under those words lies a threat. Don't outgrow me. That's what their tone is really saying. It's not your risk they fear. It's the distance your growth might create. When you evolve, you disturb the emotional contract they never admitted out loud. A contract where you stay where they feel strong, needed, relevant, but now you're moving, and they're afraid, not for you, for themselves. This is the moment when clarity cuts deepest, when someone wraps fear in concern, when they attempt to anchor you to where they felt safe. You've just uncovered something powerful. They weren't protecting you, they were protecting their place beside you. Real allies evolve with you, they adapt, they cheer from a distance if they must. They don't flinch at your wings, they help you stretch them. So when you drop the idea of change into a conversation, don't look for loud reactions. Look for patterns, look for shifts in energy. Who grows quiet? Who redirects the topic? Who suddenly stops engaging? These are data points, not to punish, but to process. Because loyalty doesn't resist your elevation, it reinforces it. And if someone begins to retreat the moment you start rising, believe them. That's not your anchor. That's your ceiling. Let them go. Test 3. The strategic silence. This is where most illusions begin to die. The third test is the silence test, not as a punishment, not to manipulate, but to create space, intentional space. You stop communicating. You vanish, not forever, just enough. Enough to measure their response. You don't explain, you don't hint, you simply pull back. Because most people are only present when you're visible, when you're loud, active, engaged. And when that presence disappears, so do they. That's because their connection wasn't built on loyalty. It was built on availability. And when availability fades, so does the illusion. Machiavelli believed that silence is the great revealer, not because of what it says, but because of what it exposes. In your absence, people show you exactly where they stood. They step forward, or they vanish. The loyal ones notice the stillness. They feel your absence, not for their benefit, but for yours. They don't panic, they don't guilt. They simply check in, softly, subtly. You okay? That's it. No accusations, no demands, just care without conditions. But the false ones, they grow silent too. Not because they respect your space, but because you were never part of their center. You were their accessory. And when you stop performing that role, they move on. Or worse, they grow resentful. Your silence offends them because it removes the mirror they use to validate themselves. That's how you know the bond wasn't real. It was conditional, performative, temporary. This test hurts, it cuts deep, because it strips away the performance we call connection. It exposes the ones who only applauded you when you were shining, the ones who only messaged when they needed something, the ones who kept you close, not out of affection but convenience. And as your inbox stays quiet, as your phone stops lighting up, you begin to realize most of what you thought was loyalty was just noise. Noise that filled the space where silence should have lived. Don't rush to fill it back. Let it echo. Let it speak. Because that silence, uncomfortable as it may be, is where real loyalty rings loudest. One voice, one presence, one person who notices not your absence from the world, but the world's absence from you. And they step in, not for attention, not for credit, but because that's what loyalty does. It stays, quietly, powerfully, unshaken. Test 4. The display of vulnerability. Most people say they want real relationships, real bonds, real loyalty. But what they truly want is admiration. They want to be seen at their best, praised when they shine, followed when they lead. But the fourth test doesn't happen at your peak, it happens at your dip. It requires you to show something rare in a world obsessed with perfection. Vulnerability, not performative weakness, not self-pity, real, quiet, unfiltered uncertainty. Let them see the crack. Let them see the moment when you don't have it all figured out. Let your confidence drop just slightly, and then observe not who comforts you but who distances themselves. Because some people are not loyal to you. They're loyal to your image, to the strength you project, to the certainty you exude. The moment that mask slips, their support does too. Machiavelli warned, "Those who worship the statue will flee when it falls." And he was right. When you stumble, when you hesitate, when you bleed, even a little, the ones who are using your strength as a ladder will back away, not out of concern, but because they never signed up for your humanity. They signed up for the version of you that lifted them, that inspired them, that made them feel safe by comparison. And now seeing you uncertain makes them uncomfortable, because they can no longer rely on you to carry the emotional weight. But the loyal lean in. They don't need you strong to stand by you. They don't need you polished to believe in your power. In fact, it's your vulnerability that sharpens their loyalty. This test is brutal because it reveals not just how people see you, but what they're really there for. If their respect dissolves the moment your shield comes down, it was never respect. It was convenience. And it's better to see that now than later, when the stakes are higher and the fall is steeper. Let your weakness be your filter. Show them a glimpse of your human side, not to be rescued but to watch who stays, who listens, who supports without needing the full script. Those who pass this test become rare, sacred, not because they fix you, but because they don't flinch. And those who fail, let them go. You weren't weak for revealing yourself. They were weak for needing your strength to pretend they cared. Test 5. The subtle temptation. This is the coldest test, the most powerful. The one that strips away every layer of performance and cuts straight into character. You give them a choice, a subtle opportunity, a hidden moment where betraying you, not loudly, but quietly, could benefit them. Maybe it's information they could share, a move they could make, a silence they could keep that helps them but hurts you, and you don't warn them. You don't signal that it's a test, you just leave the door cracked and watch who walks through it. Because some betrayals don't explode, they whisper, they don't shout across battlefields, they slip through conversations. And Machiavelli understood. Betrayal is rarely dramatic, it's almost always strategic, quiet, self-justified, and deadly. The real purpose of this test isn't to punish, it's to reveal, to see with precision how someone's values move when no one's watching. Do they choose short-term gain over long-term loyalty? Do they hesitate, hide it, twist it later into a rational excuse? Or do they come to you clearly, directly and say, "Here's what I noticed, I thought you should know." Because that reaction is everything. It doesn't just expose loyalty, it uncovers integrity, and integrity cannot be faked under pressure. A disloyal person will always protect themselves first. And when opportunity arises, their instinct isn't to guard you, it's to assess risk. Can they get away with it? Will you find out? How bad will it look? But the loyal? They don't even consider betrayal an option. Not because you're perfect, not because they fear consequences, but because the relationship is real and real things aren't negotiable. This is the test that most people fail. Because most people are loyal only to their advantage, their reflection, their gain. And when you realize how quickly someone can turn for so little, it stings. But it's necessary, because it's better to see the crack at the beginning than to feel the collapse when everything depends on them. And here's the key. Once they fail, you don't confront. You don't warn, you don't lecture, you just cut. Cleanly. Because explanation is mercy, and mercy in the face of betrayal is self-sabotage. Machiavelli would say, let the opportunity reveal them. Then move in silence. Loyalty revealed in comfort is worthless, but loyalty revealed through temptation, that's armor, that's unshakable. And when you find someone who passes this test, you don't keep them close. You guard them like a secret, because they're not just an ally, they're a weapon. The silence after these tests is louder than any declaration, because when the dust settles, you begin to see not who claimed loyalty, but who proved it, and most won't. Not because they're villains, but because they were never built for pressure. They were built for comfort, for convenience, for presence without purpose. And when that comfort is removed, when your light dims, when your certainty shakes, when your silence stretches, so do they. The pain isn't in the betrayal. It's in the realization that what you thought was solid was always soft. That the people you fed with time, energy, protection were only ever loyal to the role you played in their lives. And the moment that role stopped serving them, they quietly exited stage left. But this is where your real strength begins, because once you've run these 5 tests, once you've watched the exits and felt the chill of empty space, you're no longer operating on illusion. You're operating with proof. That proof, that ruthless clarity, is your throne. It's the platform from which you now move. You don't hesitate, you don't wonder, you don't carry dead weight masked as support. You walk lighter, sharper, cleaner. Every false bond removed is not a subtraction, it's a purification. And every real one that remains becomes sacred, because now you know they didn't stay for the spotlight, they didn't stay for the benefit. They stayed when it cost them something, and that's not a friend, that's not a follower, that's an ally, an extension of your strength. And once you identify someone like that, once they pass every filter, every silence, every moment of vulnerability and temptation, you don't treat them like part of your circle. You treat them like part of your core. Loyalty like that is not praised. It is protected. Quietly, strategically, fiercely. Because when you have one person who is real, you're not alone. You're fortified. So here's the final move. You stop explaining. You stop defending your silence. You stop apologizing for setting standards that expose the weak. You move forward with fewer people, but more power. Because while others waste energy managing chaos, repairing cracks and questioning motives, you're operating in full clarity. You know who's real, you know who failed, and more importantly, you know who never needed to be tested again. Loyalty isn't just something you demand, it's something you embody, silently, consistently. So test them, watch them, and when they show you who they are, believe them. Then cut, then move, and never look back.